Fans seem to like everything coming out of the mouth and the game of Renato Moicano. Money Moicano can flow over Drew Dober by unanimous decision. And there's a lot to unpack with someone like you with all your fucking stripes on your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, right? But somebody like Drew Dober, one of the most decorated knockout artists in UFC lightweight history, but he had to be expectant, and Elliot Marshall in his corner, that it might be this type of fight where he was going to have to execute hip escapes and getting off from his back and out from underneath Renato Moicano. He was unable to do so most of the night. And despite a lot of violence and blood intertwined within this fight, that was the story of the fight for me. Moicano just on a totally different level on the ground than Drew Dober.
Yeah, I think more than anything else was kind of the lack of MMA IQ on the part of Drew Dober. And I mean that respectfully because he's such a dangerous fighter, but I think that he wasn't making the proper adjustments in that fight. He had Moicano hurt in round one. You know, I picked Moicano. I thought he'd be able to take him to the ground and control him there, and it ended up working okay for me. However, I was extremely nervous the first few minutes of that fight versus Drew Dober because he was landing a lot of heavy shots. But when it came to his ground defense, fighting off of his back, not only was he not able to get back to his feet, but I also think there was a lack of efficiency there, which really hurt him late in that fight. He was expending a tremendous amount of energy, not only because maybe he was lacking some of that efficiency himself in his technique, but also Moicano fought brilliantly. He allowed Drew Dober to carry his weight very well. And because of that, he was spending a lot of energy pushing him off. He was putting a lot of weight very intelligently onto the arms or frames of Drew Dober. So Drew Dober was constantly bench pressing, probably for the last 2 minutes of round one, which is going to tire you out, which is going to take away your power, which is going to take away your conditioning, which is going to take away your reaction time. So that fight, although it was by decision by Moicano, was won in round one, in my opinion. A lot of things went wrong for Moicano in that fight, but his ability to switch it back over into his realm on the ground and tire out his opponent, I thought was brilliant, very smart, because Moicano, yes, he can strike, but he cannot strike on the level of someone like a Drew Dober. So this is mixed martial arts. This was beautiful to watch, the adjustments, the win from Moicano. And I thought it was a really fun fight to watch as well.
And a lot of credit goes out to our man Pahumpa as well in the corner, the American top team corner of Renato Moicano. And largely given the matchup, Kenny, I think this is exactly what they figured they might have to do. Maybe you feel a little bit of what's coming back from Drew Dober early and then path of least resistance. So Renato Moicano then takes to the microphone and continues to sort of advance his profile in that regard, right? Like certainly you and I and a lot of the fan base has a wild appreciation for everything he does as a mixed martial arts athlete, but it's been his last two post-fight interviews, despite a huge gap between them, that is really what is resonating with this fan base. I think part of this post-fight interview with Daniel Cormier suggested that his 60-year-old father, 62, 65, just became a father for the however many time. So there's just a lot to like when it comes to Money Moicano and letting his personality after a big win lead the dance, you know?
He had a lot to say after that fight, didn't he? It was hilarious. It was one of the funnier post-fight speeches that I've heard in a little while. The other one that's memorable was the other one by Moicano. And you hear this guy in Money Moicano who's really trying to hype himself up a lot more now. He's really trying to take advantage of that microphone. And I think it's a wise move. You only have so much time in this sport. And Renato probably found out that if you stay a little too quiet and if you fight kind of like everybody else, you get blended in and you become just kind of one of many in the crowd. And I think this is his way of standing out, getting people to remember him. I love the message. I probably would have gone without so many F-bombs if he's tried to tell people to be a little bit more aligned with God. But hey, everyone has their method of doing things. I think there's a lot of passion coming out of this guy, and you can see it not only in what he's saying, but also in the way that he's fighting. He is fighting with more passion, I feel like, lately. And it's great to see, man. It's hard. Extremely hard just to get to the level of the UFC, and to stay there for that long is even harder, and to make a name for yourself and to separate yourself from a crowd, especially the insane 155-pound division. is even more difficult to do. So props to Moicano for getting it done against a really tough opponent and for standing out amongst a bunch of studs in that division.